What is happening, everybody? It's been a while since I've done a video. I'm roaming about the streets of Krakow with a cold and my throat is a bit painful, and I was just thinking how it feels like it's a Friday, but I keep realizing that it's actually a Thursday, and I love those realizations because it means that I've gained essentially a day. I have fabricated an extra 24 hours in my life, which is cool. And I keep making the same mistake of forgetting that it's Thursday and thinking it's Friday, so I keep gaining that extra 24 hours. But it also got me thinking about how we're essentially fabricating our sense of life at every step of the way. Are we not? A strange thought. Got me thinking about the abundance of creativity. We're essentially creating endless variations. We have the capacity in us to create endless new insights and new thoughts and new combinations of things that will then inform a slightly different outcome, a slightly different experience. It could be a mood, it could be a kind of perception of reality, like, for example, thinking it's a Thursday, thinking it's a Friday when it's actually a Thursday. But how does this inform? And I might be slightly. I'm trying to think back. Did I take some dodgy medication earlier for this cold that's making me think this way? Can't remember. But it got me thinking about creativity and how there's a lot of people that I interact with every day who need to be creative and need to for their content and posts and things that they're sharing and new ideas that they're putting forward for their clients and customers. People need to be continually creative and continually need to come up with new prompting ideas or ideas that make people think, to keep the machine going, to keep the attention coming back to the brand, coming back to driving new sources of traffic and interest for people's newsletters and people's YouTube channels and social media channels. And a lot of people can find resistance around coming up with new ideas, and I want to kind of drill the point home today that we have an incredible, abundant, never-ending access to new ideas. And it often doesn't feel that way because it feels as if we're limited. It feels as if we lack access to these new ideas. It feels as if it takes time for a new idea to kind of germinate and kind of come up. This isn't the case, because when you think about how creativity really works, it's a fractal system, or at least that's one way of looking at it. Everything links to something else, and there's no end to the range of various combinations that we can bring in. Take two disparate ideas and bring them together. There's no end to that. If you're trying to come up with a new idea, all you got to do is look around you and take, for example, a swan and a runner. Could you write an article about swans and running and how the two how we can bring the two together? Well, let's try and do that right now. Perhaps the way swans dip under the water to access their food in their unique way, where their hind legs go up in the air. How can we bring running into that? And how can we bring that into I'm losing my mind, but it's interesting, isn't it? Running, why do people run? Why do people, go out at 3 p.m. to go running? Well, they want to clear their mind. They want to feel better. They want to lift their mood. So you could say that running is a sort of human version of what swans are doing to access their life force. Swans, in order to survive and thrive, they need to continually dip their heads below the water. Humans don't need to do that, but we also have our own variation of that, which is to go outside and clear the mind through the process of running, so that we don't kind of inadvertently limit ourselves and actually limit our survival. A lot of people have killed themselves, to get dark on you, because they have overwhelmed themselves in the mind. And runners, I'm just going on a tangent here, but it's interesting. There's always something there, this endless fractal way of seeing creativity and thinking abundantly, in very much the way that, I haven't been doing very, very well with videos recently, but I've been writing a lot and I've been creating a lot, and I often create when I least feel like it. I often create when I'm nowhere near in the mood to create, or I'm nowhere near to the sense that I'm close to a good idea. I had no idea what I was going to talk about until a few minutes ago in this case, and that's testament to the power of abundant creative resource that we might not think is there. And the main point that I want to make is that, okay, first of all, we can create even when we don't feel like it, because creativity has nothing to do with feelings. It has everything to do with present moment insight gathering. And that's the interesting thing, because when we can move aside, if we can step aside from the idea that we are limited in our creativity, which is the big barrier. Many people limit themselves because they have the story running in their minds that says, I can't create enough, I don't have enough, I don't know enough, I haven't had enough experiences. That's all thinking, that's all just personal, mind level, egoic, fabricated, illusory thinking that gets in the way of what's truly there, which is all the stuff that's underlying all of this thought and all of this kind of cyclical thinking. To be really creative is essentially to step outside of that story, to let go of this concept that we continually bring up in our minds as an excuse not to create. I've talked about this in a previous video. A lot of us think that when we have writer's block, it's because we've run out of ideas. Not true. We have writer's block because we're creating an excuse to not act, and that is how people remain stuck. Not because they're not creative, but because they're coming out with a reason to not act, out of fear of judgment and out of fear of what could potentially happen when we put ourselves out there into the world, which I find fascinating. But we all have this endless resource at our disposal when we step outside of judgmental thinking, and we let our minds still for a moment, and we enter into the realm of fractal, endless sources of creative insight and ideas, as we saw with the runner and the swan. Although not very well articulated, we all have an endless resource that we can dive into. So that's what I want to leave you with, is just the fact that we, as long as we're willing to think abundantly, or at least realize our abundance, our creative insights and our creative ideas will never run out. There are other factors at play that are interesting in what it means to be a human. Human beings can get in our own ways, in very creative ways. I've spoken about this before as well, which is that, the only time we're not creative is when we're creatively being uncreative. I will leave you with that, guys. It's a bit of a strange one today, I suppose, but it's also very relevant to a lot of us. We are reliant on ideation and coming up with new ideas, and this is what it means to be human as well, is we tend to get depressed when we're not creating, I've noticed. And when we write things and sit down to create and press publish and we share things and we are in the mode of creation, we're actually fulfilling what it means to be human, in my view. This is why we feel more alive, more excited, more in touch with ourselves and with the rest of the planet when we are creating things. Creativity is a means to connect. Creativity is a means to realize our humanity. And so when we tell ourselves the story that we can't think of anything new to say, we're denying our humanity in some ways. That for me is fascinating. So really this is a video about not only creating cool things to, coming up with ideas of cool things to write and talk about, it's also a video about reconnecting and realizing ourselves and our humanity and feeling good and feeling alive and lifting ourselves, raising our frequencies, and knowing that we have this capacity within us to raise our frequency and remain high frequency. Okay, that was what was on my mind today. Hopefully that was helpful in some way for you guys. If you want to hear more, make sure you're subscribed to this. Do like this video if you indeed liked it. We want to make sure that the reptilian overlords are able to see that people like this through the algorithms and the digitals, and do what you do to support these words as best as you can. I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys.